All right, so here we are. So let me just break down a little bit about what this concept is. I decided a while back that I wanted to do some consulting and speaking and things of that nature, and haven't really necessarily kicked it off the ground. I've done a couple engagements, but have been real busy with tree work and family matters and things of that nature. But I had a concept. You'll hear me reference the Forge. So I'll say, Paul Beaster Consulting, this is the Aging Climber series. Step into the Forge or welcome to the Forge. If you hear me mention that, in fact, the website in the byline says step into the Forge. And what I just want to give you an idea what that is all about. Yeah, I'm sure you know what a forge is, and actually my son and I were big Forged in Fire fans where they make all kinds of blades and things like that and do some smithing and that type of stuff. At any rate, a forge is obviously where there's a great deal of heat and metals and alloys and things are put into high levels of heat and they are changed. The heat cooks out the impurities, it tempers the metal gets folded, the metal gets beaten and hammered and turned into something else. So what goes into the forge is not the same thing that comes out. Well, to me, that is a magnificent metaphor for life. We have the refiner's fire. Now, to me, as a Christian guy, the Bible talks about, the refiner's fire. Now, I'm not going to get all preachy on you here, but that's just part of my life journey, part of my belief system. It really is just a metaphor in general. Life sometimes, oftentimes, acts as a forge. It tempers us. It changes us, and we have choices to make when we face trial and tribulation. So when you hear me reference the forge or anything that has to do with the forge, that's kind of where this concept comes from. So a lot of times what I will want to address moving forward in this series and hopefully others to follow is that we're living a life that tests us, tests our metal, and oftentimes coming into a trial, we're different coming out on the backside of it. So that's really what that's all about. All right, so let's dig into the first kind of, I'm going to call it a module of the Aging Climber series, and that's on preparation. Hey, what's up, everybody? So this is going to be the first official kickoff episode of the Aging Climber series. I do have a website, Paul Beaster Consulting. This is all kind of brand new. This is something I wanted to kick off a year ago. And I, again, let the idea of trying to be perfect stand in the way of getting it started. I'm sort of done with that. And I would encourage you, any ideas that you may have for anything, whether it's a business idea, an invention, anything you want to get off the ground. I mean, honestly, even having kids, like I remember people going, well, when we're ready financially, listen, you're never really ready, are you? Just step out and get moving, and a rolling start sometimes is better. So what I'm going to do is, as I mentioned in the Instagram post about 2 weeks ago, is this is going to be pretty raw. It's going to be hopefully authentic. I'm not going to do a whole lot of editing. I'm going to fuse a few videos together, but that's about it. I'm not going to try to be perfect. I'm not going to be comprehensive and cover every single concept that's possible here. My hope is, and I remember Dr. Shigo talking at a seminar one time, and his main theme was, I really just want to get you to think. So I view this more as a forum, more as a catalyst, more as an ability to begin conversation. I am not, and this is not the end-all be-all in terms of comprehensive lists of what it takes to be prepared. Today's topic will be preparation, but let me just walk you through a couple concepts first, and we'll go from there. Actually, first I'm going to give you a tour. So this, I'm really just doing this right from my shop. Bucket trucks inside. One thing I want to be careful to show you is this stairway behind me leads to a second floor. Now, this stairway is an idea that I had for a really long time. We built that second floor with the idea we could put some additional office space up there as we grew. We never really grew into that. We have 2 offices downstairs, but kind of came up with this idea. I'm going to just kind of walk alongside this here, that this would become a large group instruction area. So pretty decent size. The building's about 40 feet wide, so you can kind of see. We're going to put a large group instruction area, and I want this to kind of be like a logging camp feel, so I'll put a bunch of history up here, some old cross-cut saws. I have a slab of black walnut that's being kiln dried right now. I'll probably be ready sometime in January, but I want to put this up because I want y'all to see as this concept matures and kind of takes wings that you'll get an idea to see, the progress. So that's really it. I'm going to cut away now, and we'll get into a little bit about the idea for this and where we're heading.
What does that look like? So for me in the morning, personally, what I do is when I sort of first come online, when I begin to wake in the morning, I basically start gratitude practice. And as as my brain is coming online, I realize I'm waking up, I might say something like, boy, I'm really thankful for another day. I'm thankful for, really grateful. Now, to me, again, I hope I don't bore you with this. To me, it's God. I'm thankful for my wife, my kids, and I'll literally go kind of line by line. And then sometimes as I come in, I have a beautiful sunrise coming up, and I'll acknowledge it. So I'll take those moments, and I'm thankful and grateful for the things that I see before me, the things that I know that I have to take the time to be grateful for. And it can be really simple, but what I would encourage you to do is just in your mind, just do that. Just come up with something, 3 things, say, in the morning that you're grateful for. Now, it might seem like a small thing, but what that's going to do is it's going to put you in a different mindset. It's going to put you in a shift. And here's an example. You might have situations with employees, things that frustrate you, and we can really just hone in on those and, this guy and that thing. And I mean, there was a time when I didn't have employees. I've had several times in my career where I've had to work by myself or with one other person, and it's a real grind. So I'm grateful that I have help. I'm grateful that I have a team. None of us are perfect. So there's a paradigm shift there in our minds, depending on how we view that. So I think it's really important to start off the day with gratitude. So that's kind of number 1, and that's a big concept. So moving in to concept number 2 for me is what I would call intention or intentionality. And that's become a bit of a catchword, a bit of a buzzword. What is that? What does that mean? It means setting my intention. So part of my morning practice as I'm on the fly is to decide in the morning prior to my team getting there how I want to show up that day. And I will say that to myself, how do I want to show up today for my team? I might use an affirmation, say, I'm a problem solver. I'm a teacher. I'm someone that encourages people. I want to show up today, as a bright spot in someone's day. I want to show up today as a person with a sense of humor. The other day, so here's a concept. The other day, with all this COVID and all this election stuff going on, and there's just madness out there. And I think it manifests itself in many different ways in many different people's lives. So I decided the other day that I was going to bring a message of light and joy and peace. That was my thing. I was estimating that day. I made that decision before I left the house. So a lot of times we can, we get up in the morning and we're running a program, as it were, right? This is a big thing that Joe Dispenza talks about. And if you haven't seen any of his work, and hopefully this is the kind of stuff I'm going to bring, is where I point you to somebody that had an impact on me with their teaching. So Joe Dispenza talks a lot about our mindset and our intention and how we run a predetermined program. In other words, we get up the same side of the bed, we brush our teeth with the same hand, we check our Instagram account, we're on social media, and your mind kind of goes right into its program. And so oftentimes we, it's like you get on the road, and at that same point in your commute each day where the traffic gets bad, you've already decided in your mind, this is where you get angry. Your body almost knows, I come around the corner, I see brake lights, this is a frustration. And so basically what he says is you can decide ahead of time that you're not going to follow that program. You're not going to obey sort of your body and that matrix that we're in. So that's where the work of intentionality comes in. It's deciding beforehand how you're going to show up and practice those things in your mind. So now you've taken some gratitude and you've taken some intention and you've got your mind, excuse me, in the right place. Now, there's a lot of other things you can do to help prepare your mind. There's some great free meditations on YouTube. There's this channel called Great Meditations. It's basically a 10-minute meditation, and if you have time, you can kind of search different ones. There's one on time management that I like. And sometimes I'll play that, and I'll do 10 minutes of breath work, 10 minutes of meditation. And again, let me back up a second. I'm starting to ramble here, but what happens is a lot of these overlap. So there's we're going to go through them in linear fashion, the spiritual, the physical, the mental. And Derek and I talk about this, you'll see in our interview, where he's talking about physical preparation. I'm actually going to go through that a little bit too. The physical preparing of certain things helps your mental state. Well, to many, the meditative process is a spiritual endeavor, or prayer is a spiritual endeavor. The fact is, engaging in those practices actually helps the mind. So again, there's integration. We talk about them compartmentalized, right? But the reality is they're integrated. So we're going to go through them in linear fashion, but we all understand that there's an integration that occurs. Okay, so back to meditation. So that's a great practice in the morning, to just kind of give yourself a sense of peace. And you may not reap the benefits of that, today or tomorrow. It's the practice, it's the ongoing practice of doing that, laid out over the course of a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, where certain triggers, for me, breathing, I can get very frustrated. And sometimes that breath, just taking that deep breath, stepping back, detaching from the moment where there's pressure, allows me to decompress and create a better thought process. I know Ed from Nat's training, he had a saying when we did our Train the Trainer course that, what was it again? Oh, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And that is true. So when we get swept up in that, if we've done our preparation work on the front side, when those things go sideways during our day, that's when that stuff pays dividends. And things are going to go sideways. I mean, that's just the way it goes. That's how you know you're living life. Okay, so we've done our gratitude. We've done our intention work. We've done some sort of quiet time or meditation. Now look, it can be something super simple. What really helps me sometimes is I'll just put on some classical music and I'll set my timer for 10 minutes. Now that might not be your cup of tea. I mean, it's funny because by nature, I'm a metal guy. I'm a heavy metal guy. I love heavy metal music, rock and roll. There's something about Vivaldi. There's something about Bach. There's something about Mozart in the background. 10 minutes, set my timer, close my eyes, and just literally breathe in my nose and out my mouth for 10 minutes. And it just puts me in a different state. Your brain waves get into a different state. Now look, we can rabbit trail down any one of these avenues. I'm just trying to bring a broad base of information, to just talk about mental preparation, that these are some of the things that you can do in the morning to kind of get your head on straight. So another thing that I think is important, and this is really cool, this is where the physical preparation kind of comes in. What do I mean by physical preparation? So what I'm talking about is I literally get things like my clothes, my lunch, my coffee prepped and ready the night before. So the prep can actually start the night before. So I will grind my coffee beans. I love, use my French press in the morning or do a pour over. In the cold weather, I take a little extra coffee. But I'll grind the beans, put them in my press, put the water in the kettle, so that's ready to go. I look at the weather forecast. I kind of know what's coming weather-wise. Of course, they're not always right, but we prepare like a good Boy Scout, I guess, or maybe like a Marine, something like that. That's a whole nother thing, packing a grab or a go bag. But I'll lay the clothes out according to what I think is going to happen. So, a lot of times I'll put extra socks. I'll have a dry shirt. There's nothing worse than, having that miserable, wet environment or, your feet get wet or a shower pops up and then you're wet and you're grumpy and it's just uncomfortable. So bring extra stuff, bring snacks, bring a bar, bring some trail mix. But I lay all my clothes out the night before. I have them folded on the floor by my bed. I wake up, my stuff's already laid out. I don't even have to think about it. Put my clothes on, I make my bed, I go out, I put the kettle on, coffee's already in there. All my lunch, for me, I'm blessed, my wife kind of puts that together for me. But when I was doing it myself, and what I watch her do as well, is all the stuff is in containers in the fridge. So really what we're doing is we're not making lunch, we're assembling lunch. So from the time I wake up in the morning, all that stuff is laid out. I also have a journal where I kind of like plot out my day. I'm using a bullet journal method. It's a analog. I'm not on the digital platform. I've tried that. For my mind, for my attention deficit, I just prefer to write it, see it, have it in list form. And that way there I know what I'm doing. So these are all a lot of things getting into the specific, starting with gratitude, going through some intention work, some type of meditative clearing the head process. In these industries where we're using our bodies, especially at high angle, right? So we're doing tree work. We have Michael working for us, came out of the tower climbing industry, 200-300 foot towers. If your head's not on right, or you got a fog, or you're carrying some sort of something, you're feeling a certain way that day, probably not a great idea to get up and do that type of work that way. All right, so now we've got all our stuff laid out, and we're basically kind of like leaving, we're leaving the house now. So what does that preparation look like when we get out on a job site? This is where we get specific, and I'm probably going to let Derek, because he talks a little bit about that in the segment coming up. But the fact of the matter is we're looking at a work order. So we come in, we talk to everybody. We also, just real quick, our Mondays look a little different than our Tuesdays. What I've tried to do is create this little less stressful Monday, and it's not that we don't like Mondays here, but we recognize that we're coming out of a different mindset. We're on the weekends, and we just had a couple days off. We've moved away from work, and now we're coming and we have to put our work hat back on. Maybe some stuff happened over the weekend. Maybe it was a great weekend. I mean, don't really know that, but we're definitely shifting gears, and we've got to get our minds back on our work. So what we try to do as a team is just come in and just, hey, how was your weekend? Before we're like, what's on the docket for today? What do we got? Where are we heading? I mean, that's a conversation we have to have, and we do have. But the first thing we try to do is just, I call it a temperature check. How's everybody doing? Is anyone carrying any baggage from the weekend? We need to talk about some stuff. Once we clear the air, now we're prepped, and we're sort of like, we're shifting, we're getting gear ready, we're backing trucks up, making sure we have all the tools that we need, for the project for the day. And I typically won't throw the hardest, heaviest, fattest job on for a Monday morning. We want to ramp as we go. And this is all prepared. We set our week up in advance. So and look, again, it's always subject to change, and we always are going to kind of morph as we go along. But, to have a loose plan and at least be prepared that way. So now we're prepared. We've done all of our personal work. We've got our heads clear. We've prepared at the shop. We've got the tools we need. We've gone through the work order. We hit the job site. When we get to the job site, we all know what that kind of preparation looks like, or should. We should be taking the work order with the team and going over what we have to do that day. And by the way, having a good and well-written work order is part of preparation. Also, having an understanding of what some of the safety concerns might be, whether we're dealing with a tree that's bad, or a bad site, or pedestrians, or traffic. They're all things that go a long way to getting us prepared, right, to meet the challenges of that specific task. We've got our tools. We move into the job site. We've done our safety brief. We've identified risks. This is all preparation. We've set up our work zone, our cones. We've blocked off the drop zone. There's a lot of stuff to think about. And that's before, so all this stuff we're talking about has occurred before we have sunk a saw on a job. And we live in a high production environment, right? We're kind of get it done type of people that want to just attack the work. what I would suggest to you and what I'm trying to put out here is the preparation. Like, you have all these timelines. If you're running around like a chicken without a head and you're not prepared, just imagine the difference in waking up in the morning and have all your stuff laid out already versus, I think about the Incredibles movie, right? And Mr. Incredible's there, and Frozone, they're not really supposed to be doing this, and he's looking for his super suit, and he's like, honey, where is my super suit? So he's in the throes of like ready to go out and like save someone, and he can't find his super suit. I love that. That's awesome. So we want to have our quote unquote super suits, right, laid out, and it just, you don't want to be running around looking for that type of stuff. And that's even like having your trucks organized in a certain way, having your trucks organized in a certain way. I think I might have learned this at Nats too, was that the Coast Guard, if you have a Coast Guard cutter or a chopper, they use to like fly around and rescue people. If you're in Cali and you're on a chopper and then you get shipped to the coast, Cape May, New Jersey, the choppers are set up exactly the same way. Every stitch of wound dressing, ropes, rigging, everything is in the same exact spot. Now, we're guilty of not having that all the time. And I can tell you, when my personal bucket truck is in a state of disarray, I'm not the same person as when I know where everything is. So preparation is a huge deal. So, all right, I'm just going to kind of summarize. I feel like I talked about a lot. I've gone for 22 minutes already. I don't want to bore everybody. I just want us to be thinking in terms of preparation. We could go down any one of these little alleyways. We can talk just about meditation, and we can talk for hours about that and what a good meditation routine looks like, or a prayer routine, or just anything in this prep zone. Some people go as far as to food prep for the week, and they have all that stuff laid out. So that's taking it a step further. So there's a lot we can go into. And I'm sure once I shut this off, there's going to be 17 things I think about that I didn't get to, which, maybe in the next one I can recap. So just to summarize, what we did is we started in the morning to get our heads right and also kind of get our hearts right, right? We're, instead of coming at life from a position of lack, we're practicing our gratitude. We're just running through a couple of things we're grateful for. Thanksgiving is this week, and we always get into this, Thanksgiving and what we're thankful for. That's a real good idea to have that mindset each and every day, isn't it? Like, we can focus on the frustrations, or we can focus on the things we're grateful for. We can come from a position of lack and what we don't have, or we can come from a position of plenty, of success, and having our mindsets, focused on that. So that's huge. The intention work, moving with intention, deciding who we're going to be, how we're going to show up. I have the capacity to be super grumpy, super edgy, super aggressive. I don't want that to be my default. I want to bring a message of peace, joy. I want to have some levity. I want to create an environment in this workplace where I'm approachable. And I might be fighting my own nature a little bit here, but so if that's the case, it's even doubly important that we set our intention up front. Okay, so once we've moved away, or through the personal stuff, then we get into the work stuff. We show up, our feet hit the workplace. We are now at the shop. Whether you have a stone driveway or whatever, your tires hit the stone. We have a bit driveway here. So tires hit the stone, that's a trigger of, okay, now I'm at work. I have relationships with people here. How am I showing up for my team? How was everyone's weekend? So you're moving through. You're moving into an appropriate mindset for work. You're starting to shift away from the things at home, kind of like leaving our baggage at home, focusing on our work. Monday mornings are going to be a little bit different for us. Maybe that's a good mindset to get into. Then we're here and we're prepped. We're getting all of our tools ready and lined up, and we're getting ready to take on the day. We're comparing the work orders with the tools we have. And then we shift out of the driveway and we're heading to our first site. And there's a whole nother level of preparation that happens there. So again, just moving from the broad and personal into the specific job, job appropriate types of preparation, doing your tree risk assessments and things like that. So hopefully, like this is kind of a new thing for me, right? So I don't really know how this is coming off. I'm just going to kind of keep rolling with it. Hopefully there's some benefit here. I'm going to come back at it next time and talk a little bit about physical preparation, the things we can do next time to get the body ready. You know, what are some things we can do? And maybe I'll grab a special guest. Maybe I'll grab someone that I know does, does some sport-specific things to get the body warmed up for climbing, and or just even, I mean, look, tree work in general. It doesn't matter. Look, honestly, it doesn't matter whether you're on the ground, in the bucket, or in the air. We use our bodies in this industry and many other industries, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Moving forward, definitely going to bring in some doctors. I have a chiropractor that I want you guys to talk to. I want you guys to see some of the stuff that he flows through in terms of what's good for the body. So anyway, look, I'm gonna cut this off right here. I appreciate everybody's time. I hope there's some benefit. I'm gonna just, not to be narcissistic, but the feedback, I just want to make sure I'm on track, that this information is valuable. Again, this comes from a heart of this community being so good to me for so many years, that I want to just kind of like take some of that stuff and just push it back into the community, and we'll go from there. Please, I'm gonna loop in the conversation I had with Derek Martin right after this, so please stay tuned. Drop a comment. I'm actually going to wind up posting this stuff up to my YouTube channel, Paul Biester. I'm a little slow on the draw with that. Again, this is all a process, but I just really wanted to get started. So as I go along, Instagram's probably going to be my platform of choice for kind of like putting this out into the community. And I'll use YouTube as kind of an archive for all this information, and we'll go from there. All right, thanks again. Have a great one. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope it's awesome, and talk to you soon. All right, hey, what's up, everybody? Got a little bit of a special guest right here. So we're in the Forge. We've been talking a lot about preparation, and we have Derek working with us for a couple of days. So I just going to ask Derek to talk a little bit about preparation. What's up, Derek? So Derek has traveled down from, where are you at?
From Lebanon County, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah, so you're near Hershey, right?
Yep, central Pennsylvania.
Okay. So Derek, for a while worked with Goods Tree Care with Bob Good, and for how long have you been contracting now?
About a year now, full time. Actually, not even a year full time, but I was doing partial while still working at Goods part time, and I was at Goods for 9 years.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah.
So Derek's made a little bit of a shift. So he travels a little under 2 hours to get here. So we're working through this module on preparation, and we kind of know that we do understand that the mental and the physical and the spiritual preparation at certain points, they integrate. So we had a little conversation yesterday about it. And, being a contract climber, coming from a distance, I'm just curious if there's anything for you on your mental prep game. So like you're leaving in the morning at a pretty early hour to get to us by the start of work time. What kind of things are you doing to get yourself prepared to take on a contract, a contracting situation like that where there's some travel involved? Is it something you start the night before? Walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, most of my prep happens the day before. I messaged you a couple days before asking what kind of work we're going to get into, and that sort of stuff. And that starts the process of giving me an idea of what kind of gear I'm going to need for the job. Might have to start asking heights of trees, so I make sure I have long enough ropes and stuff like that.
Yep.
But so that prep comes in just kind of mentally starting to set myself on what gear I'm going to bring, how much gear I'm going to bring, since I'm traveling a little bit further and I know I'm going to be out working with your crew. I kept it a little bit less because I know I might be on one of your trucks, where on a typical day-to-day contract where I'm just hopping in for that day and then hopping back out, I don't roll around with the crew as much. So then I make sure I bring all of my own gear to prep for all that. But since I was coming with you, I brought a smaller rigging kit, which actually kind of backfired on my part. Should have had some longer ropes again. But yeah, and then my saws, I got to make sure everything's prepped in that regard. I always that's like my weapon. It's like back in the day, guys always did their their swords, kept them nice and clean, ready for battle. Well, my saws are my battle weapon of choice. So got to make sure I'm keeping that, because if my saw don't cut, I don't look good.
It's like Excalibur, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's funny because we talked yesterday a little bit about, so that's kind of like physical stuff, and that integrates to your, so having that stuff in order, it sounds like kind of gets your mind.
Yeah, it really
dialed
gets
in.
me focused in on what how I'm going to prepare for the next day. Like prepping my gear, even though that's a physical thing, is really mentally preparing me for the next day. Some of the physical prep I do is more in warming up my body and stuff like that. That's where I would consider more of the physical aspect of prepping myself. In this regard, prepping gear is my mental way of preparing, because I really only know ahead of time if I'm going in for removals or pruning, and that's basically what it is. When I worked full-time for a company, I could look at a work order the day before. Very rarely do I get to see a work order the day before.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of told, hey, crane work, or we've got a large manual removal. Sometimes they'll say something like tight quarters or something like that, and then I'm going to bring a little bit of a specialized kit. And that's my mental preparation, is sort of reaching out, getting an idea of the general spec of work. And then when I get on site, it's also finding out how many jobs we got going on that day. Am I going to be here for the whole day? Am I going to be jumping around a little bit? And then part of that preparation in that morning, so the day before is prepping, being able to get to the job in time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look up the distance, the travel, and then that first thing in the morning, that's one of my first things I do, is look up the job again, see if traffic's changed at all. Like that we can see traffic and such like that. And then I'm planning I do the same breakfast every morning. I don't even got to think about it. So that sort of stuff is all prepped the night before.
Yeah.
For a trip like this where I was gone for a couple of days, I'm checking weather, prepping what kind of clothes I need to bring. It turned out to be kind of cold and windy.
Yeah.
I was glad I prepped for that.
No doubt.
So, yeah.
That's cool. It sounds like, so this is a key. This is something y'all want to remember, is part of what he's saying is that there are an element of questions, and I think questions, a lot of times our egos can get in the way in other areas, not necessarily here, but where we get afraid to ask a question because maybe we don't know, or we don't want to come off like we don't know. We have to remember how valuable questions are. So he's asking questions that, to give him to kind of quantify and qualify the work, and it allows him to kind of get his mind, in order. So,
those questions are very important for me to give an idea of the work. If I don't ask them, I go in completely blind, and I got to at least have a little bit of a mental process going for what I'm going to get into and how to prepare myself for that. Even down to, like, I have different shoes for pruning compared to removals. Now, I carry them both with me, but it's just sort of prepping my mind, prepping like the way I'm going to go about doing things.
That's a great, that actually brings me to a segue, because it sounds like we're on the same page here. Like, it's not necessarily like that, having that shoe or whatever is a make or break, but it's just, it's almost like having that flow and having that next little thing kind of planned out. It sort of puts the mind at ease, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, if you have a routine, I've found for myself at least, if I have a routine, there's a lot less I have to think about because I already have all these things lined up. So then when it comes time that I really got to use my mind and start thinking or breaking down the job or something like that, I already know I have these ducks in a row so that I can really just focus on the main aspect of the work.
That's awesome. All right, so you've prepped the night before, you've made the phone calls, you've checked weather, you've traveled in. Your car hits the, in fact, you beat me here yesterday morning. Your car hits the stones, you roll out, you see the guys. What is, when you walk in here to a site, now you know my team a little bit because we worked for a whole week together, which was awesome, and that was a bit of an icebreaker. What is that morning when you arrive at, say, a new company, or even here where there's a little familiarity? What goes into putting your mind at ease before you and the team that you're working with kind of connect and actually get to the project? What does that look like that morning?
I'm just going to walk around and introduce myself to anybody I don't know, and then reacquaint myself with the guys I do. Catch up, make small talk, just kind of puts people at ease, in my opinion. I like that little bit of small talk, just a little bit of catch up, just a regular conversation. It doesn't have to get down to work right away.
Sure.
I kind of want to ease into that, especially coming in on a Monday morning makes a difference too. We're going to ease into the whole day, and then I see how I can help prep things. If I can make things easier for somebody else, then it's going to lower the tension on a job and the stress on a job. If they understand right off the bat that I'm here to help, not just here to do one aspect of it, then it feels like it becomes more of a team effort, and I become part of that team. And that's something different for me as a contractor, is I got to integrate myself as part of the team every single day. Well, normally it's a new crew every single day, but for every contract that I go in to work with. So that's sort of the first stage, is getting here and setting that up.
That's awesome. So we're doing this raw. I talked about this is going to be super authentic. We're in my office just shooting this. We're going to integrate it with the other part of this video. Phone's ringing in the background. I'm not going to edit that out. This is real stuff right here, which is great. All right, so you're here. You introduce with the guys. We get a work order. We roll out to the job site. This week we had some pretty good size.
Oh, yeah.
Some pretty good size plus 100 foot, 120.
I think the last one I was in, I probably would have guessed at 125 before I took the top out.
Yeah. We weren't topping. So at any rate, so now you get out to the job site. So, a lot of guys, that are professionals that have been around a while understand what a pre-climb prep looks like. But you hit that job site with my team. We did a job brief. We walked through the work order, and we kind of looked at our work. So now you're on site, your feet are on site, got the proper footwear, you're ready to tackle the job. Walk me through that 10-minute, 15-minute before you start getting lines in trees where your head is.
Yeah, so first thing we're going to do, it's what we do with every job, is walk through and see the whole spec of work, like what all is going on. And from that point, I'm looking at what equipment do we have and what can the equipment do? And then where is my priority going to be? So on the job that we started on Monday, it was very large poplar prunes, deadwood, and we had a pool right there to work over and some landscaping and stuff like that. So because the trees were so large, and I haven't been in, I've been in more of a removal mode instead of a pruning mode, I picked one of the more difficult ones that I knew had to be climbed, but not the most difficult one to start with. I wanted to kind of get my feet wet, get warmed up before I got to the one that was fully over the pool with long, large leads that were going to have to be lowered out. So that's my first thing, is sort of seeing what's going to be hit with equipment, or might be able to be hit with equipment, because there was ones that we thought, maybe you could get a couple limbs, but then I had to go up and finish the tops just because of how tall they were.
Yep.
So that was my first step with the jobs that we went through, is just seeing what aspect we knew was going to be falling down on me as a climber. And so I started, with one of the larger trees, but it wasn't the most difficult, just to allow myself to sort of get integrated into the process. And there was a little bit of lowering that went into that first one, so that also allowed me to work with Mike, one of the guys, to lower out a couple things and just actually get warmed up between the two of us. Every day you got to kind of get into that flow when you're working with a ground guy that you're not used to every day, and he's not used to you. So picking the size piece we take so that we're both comfortable with it and both things are going well. And plans changed throughout, as they did with that job too. But then the second tree, we were into that flow. We had already lowered some pieces, so then that one went a whole lot smoother after I got a line in the tree. Thank goodness. A little bit of problems there, but and so that's part of the mental game that goes down, is breaking down the job, seeing what I have to do, seeing where I feel like I should start. And sometimes I start with the biggest tree just to knock that out first. But I wanted to warm up a little bit to go into this one.
That's awesome. I actually love what he's saying here, because I think a lot of times we look at a ticket and we kind of go, all right, biggest, baddest, nastiest, back left corner, that's the hardest part. But I love what you did on this site. We had access to a lot of the property, so it wasn't critical in terms of logistics where we started. But I love, and just take note of what he's saying, where it's like, I'm warming up my mind, I'm warming up my body, I'm warming up the relationship with the ground person who's on the ground. So what's amazing is, and this is the thing when we talk about this stuff, we talk about it in a linear fashion, like we're saying, mental prep, safety, but really what you're basically saying and what I'm hearing in the conversation is that there's an integration,
They all
isn't
go
there?
together.
There's an integration by starting with not the most difficult and creating that synchronicity with you and the groundy. You're really accomplishing a lot of things by warming your body up. You're preventing injury. You're preventing, you're thinking about safety. It's that whole low and slow. Like when we try new gear,
Oh,
out
absolutely.
almost, right? So I really love that. I know when we talked about this yesterday, I really appreciated that aspect, and I thought, man, that a lot of times I know what I'll do is when I'm doing a rigging operation, I may know that I can go big.
Right.
But I may set a block, a couple of rings. I'll run my rope, and I'll just say to the guys like, "Hey, let's put a couple in the system first and see how everything behaves. If we're gonna pick some little weirdness up and where everything's gonna go, I'd rather do it with a smaller piece first,
Right.
and then ramp as we go."
And that sort of came into play with the first tree that we ended up doing because of the fact that we were going to lower, and I was looking to go a little bit larger to make things a little bit easier on me. And I thought it might make things easier to get things out since we were working over a landscape area as well. But then I set the lowering line and I said, hey, let's just run the line down and make sure it's long enough. Well, it turned out it wasn't. So then we had to change plans in that we didn't have a single line long enough, so we tied two together. And that changed my whole plan on rigging because I took out the porter wrap out of that scenario then because we couldn't have a knot pass through that.
Yep.
And that meant I'm going to go a little bit smaller with the rigging. And that we could handle it by hand. It also changed the way I routed my rope for the rigging because I wanted to pick up a little bit of friction naturally. So I ran through multiple unions to pick up a little bit of friction. That way I didn't have to go so small. I could, up the size just a little bit and feel like we were being a little bit more efficient and productive in the pieces that we were taking, but yet still manageable by one guy because we split the crews up just a little bit, all on the same site in the general area, but what the equipment was doing was a little bit more intensive, so I just had one guy working with me, and it was something that he could manage lowering by himself and work it out, knowing we were in a tighter, we were just over the pool, over a fence, and some landscaped area.
Yep.
So that was how my plan changed as we were going about. And like you said, prepping, I oftentimes do that. Let's run this lowering line down and see how much rope we have left.
Yep.
That way I know what they're working with because dead poplar, very brittle, wants to break. So I like to half hitch a couple of pieces. And do I have enough rope for that?
Yeah.
Well, once we tied them together, we knew we had enough rope. But sometimes like a 200-foot line, you only have enough to get it to the ground.
That's right.
And if they want to pull it out over a landscaped area, that's going to change my rigging plan there too.
That's great. And it makes me think like that little bit of preparation. I mean, think about the frustration saved on the back side of that, right? You start running half hitches and set your rigging. You got the porty there, and Mike kind of like comes to the end of his line, and now we have an issue, and now we're into a stressful situation, an unsafe situation. So the ability to take that time and prep saves a lot of headache, a lot of frustration, and so sometimes it's just, I know Jocko Willing talks a lot about detaching, but also having, stepping back, taking an evaluation of the whole battle space, rather than just focusing on one thing. So
Yeah, that comes into play a lot when my vision for what's going to happen and another guy's vision on site. It didn't happen at all this time, but it happens occasionally where I see a different vision and I got to step back and say, okay, why is he looking at this differently?
yeah,
And just because I'm seeing it one way and I have a bunch of experience, and a lot of guys just accept, my plan. But when a guy does have that, I got to take a step back and say, okay, where is he coming from with this, with his plan? Why is he seeing it in this direction? What am I missing here that he thinks this would be the most efficient way? And sometimes I have definitely overlooked something, and their plan's better.
Yeah, I think we all can do that. And it's funny. I mean, we're in a big ego business. I used to call it tree-go. Like a tree person's ego. But that to me shows, and I already know this about you. You have a great sense of humility, which I appreciate as a friend and as a coworker, as a colleague. But that's a big deal, is being able to come into a space like that and step back and consider our own. Maybe not even a shortcoming, but just going, all right, if there's another plan here, maybe we should take a look at it. And it's again, it's I'm going on this Jocko thing because I was listening to an audiobook today. And there's a lot of that in the SEAL teams. The SEAL teams are big, you know, high ego type of people. They're get things done kind of people. A lot of natural born leaders, and a lot of times the egos clash. And here you are walking into literally a different environment. You know, a couple different environments a week, and there's a high potentiality for clashes of egos. So bringing that sense of humility, and I think we could all learn as, you know, whether you're a contract guy, a climber, a groundie, a business owner like myself. You know, it's real easy for someone like me to come out and just begin to like dictate. It's a little nicer and creates a little more of a team environment, which is a whole different module down the road that we'll cover.
Right.
But ultimately, yeah. So we're a little sidetracked, but
Yeah.
but the prep saves a lot of that, man.
Yeah, one of the things, and this kind of goes back to some of the mental thing, when I have a different plan than somebody else, sometimes I find it easier just to go with their plan because they feel more comfortable in that regard.
Yep.
And if I can feel comfortable with their plan and then go with it, and they feel more comfortable, oftentimes they work a little harder within their plan. If I'm saying, no, I don't want to do it that way,
Yep.
we're doing it my way,
Sure.
they kind of shut down a little bit.
Yep.
And are like, oh, here
Yeah.
we go. Okay, it's this guy.
Yeah.
Gotta do it his way.
Yeah.
Mr. Yeah, like you said, it's a big ego sort of thing.
It is.
But if I see their plan and I don't think it's going to take that much longer or make things any more difficult for me, why not do their plan?
Yeah.
That makes them happy.
Well,
and then they work really hard within that plan.
yeah. And the thing is that I love about that is that they own it. So
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, we're going with my plan, so I better make it work.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll oftentimes ask guys, what do you think? How would you go about doing this? Oh, I wouldn't have saw that, but that's going to work just as well. Okay,
Yeah.
let's do it your way.
Yeah.
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 Sure. Why not?
Awesome.
And there's times where I say, hey, why don't you try it this way? And just to give them a new perspective, because some of the gear I use they don't have or haven't used in the past, and it's like, yeah, I know you're a little unfamiliar with that. Let's give it one quick try and see what it is. And then that's where you can get someone's feet wet, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I see how this works. This is nice.
Yeah.
I get that a lot with the rigging wrench.
That's awesome.
I can pull that out and pull some tricks, and they're just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't see
You
this
see the
happen.
light go on, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I just want to say thanks to Derek. We're gonna shut this off and probably go for like another hour here. This is kind of what we do, but it's awesome. So just peel back the curtain a little bit, talk about preparation. There's always more that can go into prep. You can never prep too much. So today we're closing out the section on just a little bit of mental preparation. We'll get into some physical prep in another module, but just keep it going. Have a good day, y'all. Derek, thanks, man. Thanks for spending some time with me.
Absolutely,
Thanks
man.
for being here for a couple of days. Always look forward to you coming in, and have to get another couple of days on the docket.
Oh, of
All right,
course.
man. Peace. All right, awesome.